In 1488 an Italian noblewoman Caterina Sforza locked herself in a castle to save herself from her enemies. Her enemies managed to capture her children and threatened to kill them if she wouldn't surrender. She climbed on ramparts, lifted her skirt to expose her female parts and shouted, "Fools! Don't you see that I can make myself more children?" In colonial America, a guy was arrested and charged because he drew a lewd image of his wife in the snow. Puritans didn't appreciate the art. In 1992, two astronauts did not disclose they were married to NASA until it was too late to replace one of them, and thus became the first married couple in space. While the two astronauts in question are not the kiss and tell types, most people assume this means space sex has happened. Obviously you don't have to be married to try it, but it does make it harder to figure out the couples. NASA's official stance is that it hasn't, but I'm not sure people really believe them. From the 13th to the 15th of February the Romans celebrated Lupercalia, Roman precursor of Valentine's Day, which was a festival of love and fertility. Priests would sacrifice a goat and then cut the goat skin into pieces. Part of this they would wear on their heads, and other parts were cut into thongs. The men would then run around the city of Rome naked, hitting as many women with these thongs as they possibly could. Being hit would help with pregnancy or becoming pregnant. So depending on what they wanted, the women would either deliberately stand in the way of the men, or try to run away while pretty much everyone was naked. In another part of the festivities, men would draw names of women from a jar, and the goal was that they'd stay together for the duration of the festival. This would often result in a lot of, intercourse, and sometimes people actually fell in love and got married after they met during Lupercalia. The CIA once considered sending the Soviets condoms that were large labeled small to convince them that the US was well endowed. In Pisa on St. Catherine's Day, students would search for and capture the fattest Jew they could find and demand a ransom of his weight in sweets. A lot of people banged in the White House on the day of Andrew Jackson's inauguration. French modern philosopher Michel Foucault, in addition to studying crime and deviance in a criminology sense, also applied his theories on punishment to his fascination with BDSM, having also written a number of kink-based works. He eventually moved to San Francisco and partook in gay bathhouses, notorious for casual sex. He eventually caught HIV, and some have speculated, it may be written somewhere, that he purposely contracted it as some sort of poetic social commentary. In ancient Egypt they held a fertility festival each year, and at this festival it was the pharaoh's responsibility to strip down and jerk off into the Nile. There was a guy that tried to prove that yellow fever wasn't contagious, and so he would pour the infected vomit into his freshly cut opened wood, pouring it into his eyes, and drinking it, and soaking into a bath of it, and smearing his body with blood, piss, and spit. He was fine because yellow fever isn't spread through direct contact, it's spread through mosquitoes. So he did all that for nothing. His name was Stubbinsforth. In 1511 a bunch of people in Brussels took part in the building of 110 vulgar snowmen as an act of protest. Romans loved depicting sexual acts. On many everyday items, like oil lamps, combs, bowls, etc., you often see images of people fucking. Like porn, but in daily life. During wartime some armies would wipe shit on their spears so that when they stabbed/slashed enemies they'd get that extra poison damage. Slave owners in the US had a health official who would lick slaves to see if their health was of good standing.